the CDA can communicate best with you through me.
Mm-hmm.
And they
Updates
write-
for you,
And
updates.
I'd be writing the reports and summaries?
No, they give
Or
it to you.
reports and summaries that can go in our packet. They write them.
They can send you emails.
They can either give you an update and you tell us. I understand.
I'm smiling.
Okay, because your staff, you're the
Because
staff
I'm
person, right?
rewriting that summary is
Okay.
what I'm saying, so to me it's the same thing.
Oh, okay, all right, well,
Which is fine, the logistics can work itself out if they choose to do it.
All right.
So.
You just say that reports,
No
emails, or
differently, what
updates.
updates from you, I would suggest.
Wait, from
you
our
have
planning
to write
director,
it.
how's this,
So-
wait, reports, emails, or updates from our planning director.
So, updates through the planning director.
Right.
Through reports,
You can share
emails,
them with us.
or, yeah, verbal, but I think reports.
Well,
Or
are there
minutes
minutes like
these
these with this?
There are minutes, we could always have minutes,
Just give us
put
the
the minutes in there.
if they're important.
To your point, the minutes are already
They're, yeah.
out there,
So,
so.
yeah, but they're not in our packet.
Yeah.
Because I'll just say once again, this is whatever you guys want to submit, so
You
you
do
can
a
say
link.
whatever you want to, but.
You could put a link to the minutes. In our
I
packet.
mean,
So I will say this much, Durb also had a similar conversation, and I had a similar reaction to them, and I said, I could just put on your agendas a link to the CDA packets
That's fine.
or things like that, but will you even look at it? And I think the
No, I like
answer,
the minutes better, don't you?
well,
No,
it's
I
when they want to communicate with us. It's not in general. If
Right.
they want to communicate with us, they could give us the minute. You know, if there's something they want us to
Yes, it's how
look
they
at
communicate better.
or be aware of, right? Isn't that the point of that question? How they can communicate with us? So the
if
point.
they chose to, but not.
Right, so not every single time, or we don't need every minutes, or every, but if they
Send us
want
a
to tell us
summary.
something, they wanna know how to, we're saying, through you, get us minutes, or
In
get
our
us
packet.
whatever packet
In our
they want
packet.
us to look at.
I already read their meeting packet, but if there's something, like if they done a report, they just got a study back or whatever, they can give it to you, you can forward it to us.
Links in our packet.
You know.
Right, so if they want, if they go, the planning commission should know this, Bart put it in the next.
In the packet,
Right.
and also provide an update or something. And you can also say something verbally, but I do think that if it's important, they can put it in the packet and have the planning director explain. Or-
No point well taken on the phrasing of that question, so understandable.
And then how do you prefer to provide comments to the CDA? Like this, to our planning director,
It's probably the same thing.
in their packets.
We'll return you minutes.
We
We'll trade minutes.
We'll trade.
Sure, buddy.
Luckily, we have the same liaison. All right, you done?
So with that, I will do my best to summarize that by tomorrow, because it's due the 30th.
Okay.
And then technically the chair of the committee is asked to submit it.
Oh,
So
okay.
at that point, President Rosick would be reviewing what I summarized, and if you have issues with it, you can let me know or whatnot. But so to do the 30th, I'll do my best to get to you tomorrow so that you can
Tomorrow.
submit it on time.
So what you're telling me is I have tomorrow.
Well, I have tomorrow to get it to you, and then you
I
have,
have a day,
Right.
an hour.
I
And you said,
imagine,
make sure you look in your email.
I imagine they might be able to provide a little flexibility on that, but the deadline is then, so
Okay.
understanding we all have other things to focus on as well, we'll see how we can get to it.
Okay.
Number 7.
So I don't know how to do, the goal was to have a vote on it, since you don't, I mean,
Oh, well, we can vote.
so
We're going to approve what we
if there's a
identified.
motion to submit it as discussed, second, I think that was the goal, to have that.
Right. All right, I need a motion to approve as discussed.
I move to approve as discussed.
Approve what?
Approve the, is it a survey or?
Our
Yeah,
plan
I
commission
think so.
submission,
Village Board strategic goals.
say it again?
It's the CDA/Village Board strategic goals and priorities survey at Echo now.
Okay, so our plan commission's answers to the,
Yep,
that.
very good. Sounds
Got it, or
good.
you want me to say it?
I think Crystal has it.
I got it.
Right, do I have a second?
As discussed.
I'll second.
Right, so we have a motion by Commissioner Patel and a second by Commissioner Conley Miller. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, moving on to the next one.
So as you're aware, the comprehensive plan will be updated this year to get us going on that. The village board did approve within budget discussions up to $30,000 of assistance for an update to the plan.
Which might have to go higher if we don't get submissions.
Sure, so, I'm missing my memo notes on this side. Within the memo, the plan commission discussed this May 28th of 2019 and June 25th of 2019, that an update rather than a rewrite was acceptable, and that we would use previous planning efforts or current planning efforts to help fill in those gaps. So the capital fund request was for $30,000, that was approved. So to put out this RFP to see who can bid on and provide us cost estimates, I prepared the attached, or enclosed I should say. The primary discussion point I think will be on the project scope, but I can discuss whatever you want to onto it on timelines or whatnot. Within the primary scope, I have identified in task 3 the required plan elements based on state statutes, and I've suggested areas in which the consultant would take a leading role and do more of a deeper dive into that question, and then other ones which they would assist us in just simply documenting what we currently have. So issues and opportunities, I think, is a large one where we want to reconfirm what the community's goals are, issues and opportunities. Housing, like we've just done a housing study, I think that we can incorporate what we've learned from that. Transportation, same thing, we're wrapping that up. Utilities and community facilities, we already have existing plans and long-range efforts underway. So once again, documenting what we're currently doing. Same thing, natural and cultural resources, sustainability, we have those plans on file. Economic development, that's kind of what strategic planning will provide us here with the CDA and village board, looking at those. No need to rehash it if we can, just reconfirm what those are. Intergovernmental cooperation, it's just kind of identifying how we want to work with other people. I think they can assist us with how we currently function. We'll know better than they do how we do that. Then the large one, which I think I've heard over and over again, is the Planning Commission would like to really take a stab at land use discussions, including the land use map, zoning chapter, things like that. So in my mind, that's where the bulk of their work will help us out. And then implementation, once again, we just be redocumenting those individual chapters. So in my mind, for $30,000, I think we can get a consultant to help us do this with the exhibits, the maps, things like that, and then take the lead in the public participation aspect of reconfirming all these goals, and then helping us, or I shouldn't say helping us, and then taking the lead in writing issues, opportunities, and land use.
So for public participation, I was in charge of writing the format and framework for Milwaukee, and they had 13 area plans, and so we created this whole thing. But we definitely had like a 4-pager of how public participation for any planning effort was going to happen. I think we need that here.
Yep, that's task 1.
And I don't mean by just coordinating public input sessions. I'm talking about a framework for the village to use on how to involve the public when we do a study, like when we do a planning effort. And so who makes up the management team? And is it just internal? Is it like at the city of Milwaukee we had people that help finance it? So there was different ways, but really a structure of how you're going to conduct public participation in your planning efforts.
But you're talking beyond the comprehensive planning effort?
Any planning effort. So
Right,
I'm
so you're
talking like
beyond
visioning, if we do a visioning effort in 5 years, if we do a strategic plan, if we do a downtown central master plan, whatever we may do, how do we go about structuring our public participation? I can bring in one from CMOC and just give you an example, just so you can read it, but that is what the Smart Growth Law intended for public participation. It wasn't just, it intended to document how you're going to do public participation.
Well, yeah, in this case, that is part of their task for this specific project.
To come up with
So it's develop and obtain approval from the village board of a public participation plan in compliance with Wisconsin State Statute 66.
Okay, so that's what you're talking about. It's not just like, but that, to me, and in the past of the village, what I see is, what that means is, we're going to do 3 focus groups, and we're going to have an open house at the end. And that is not what the law was intended to do.
I think each effort that was situational. Sometimes town halls work, sometimes online surveys work, sometimes other things work.
But we're going to have to always update our comprehensive plan, either every 5 or 10 years.
Right, so if you're talking specifically the comprehensive plan, I think that will be addressed within this scope, but if you're talking about all aspects in general.
No, I mean, everything's
That's a
been
harder-
modified, but I do think that when you talk about a plan like this, And sometimes you break off and you do sub-plans of the comprehensive plan. But regardless, moving forward, I just want to make sure it wasn't a consultant coming in and saying, to do this, we're going to have 3 focus groups and we're going to have an open house.
Well, they could suggest that to you, but the board will need to approve it, so if
Okay.
I think what she's asking and what.
That's not
is
how they're,
would it be part of would a public process be part of the comprehensive plan?
the documented process,
yes.
For the not for
not
for planning this comprehensive plan, but for any time there is
update.
updates or changes,
Be a
she's
section
asking.
in it, like if
It would
that
be a section within
Or if
in
you
the
develop like
Like
a
this
parks
is-
plan that's gonna be adopted as and referenced into your comp plan, which we do frequently in other cities, that process still would be followed.
So, and you're talking about an amendment procedure to the plan, that they would document how to adopt an amendment to the plan? Or are you
No.
talking about a public participation plan for a
Public-
separate plan?
How are you
effort?
gonna go about public participation in anything to do with your comprehensive plan? Whether it's a spin-off of one of the elements,
Implementing the plan.
nope, creating the plan. So this is an amendment, we have a comp plan, right?
Right, it's an update, correct?
Okay, so in 5 years, we might do another update. I don't wanna have to reinvent that wheel, we have a public participation process documented. Not how many focus groups, it's more of who is involved and at the table, how do you fund it? I'm gonna bring it in for you, but I'll send it to you, because it's my house.
Sure.
But anyways, you'll see what I'm saying. It could be both, and then they can say, and for this comp plan, we're gonna, have 4 folks. It could still be that, but I do think the state wanted, and the intent was to document a process.
And we will document the process for this plan specifically, no doubt.
Going forward too, so
Going
in
forward,
5
I
years.
don't know that I can predict in 5 years how
I'll
we
show you
want
what
to
I
do
mean.
things.
Yes, you will. I'll show you what I mean, because it's very
We have
transparent.
minimal standards perhaps, but
I'll show you what I mean, like,
that might help.
we identified 2, public participation. You're gonna have a contract management team, and you're gonna have I forgot what it was called, some other kind of team. So for any comp plan, update anything, your contract management team, everybody had to participate in funding. Doesn't amount, you can set that whenever you do, but that tied them to be stakeholders even to implement, because they felt like the money was a big thing. They felt like they had a stake in implementing. You can't do it alone as a village, otherwise it just sits on the shelf. There's reasons why it was structured in a certain way, but that was outlined, and who makes up that contract management team, and what are their duties. So that type of thing, and then who makes up the,
Scaling that to the village will be
oh, I
interesting.
understand,
Because
everybody
we don't
says
have
that,
the same
I
number
don't
of
understand.
partners that they do,
Oh, ours could be the CD, I mean, it could be anything we choose, I'm just saying there's a structure that's very transparent.
I'd be happy to review
Okay,
what you
yeah,
have.
nothing complicated, that was the intent of the law, and I just don't know that everyone follows it the right way. So that's public participation, I think that's huge. The land use, I think we all agreed on land use and zoning, that's our forte over here. That we haven't looked at in a long time. Intergovernmental. So, is there value in focusing on intergovernmental, meaning, the courts, like our municipal court, our, can someone help us identify ways that we can improve on intergovernmental sharing of tasks, of coordinating with our regional units? I mean, I don't know that we have anything, I don't feel like we have very much besides the North Shore Fire Department and the Health Department. What do you feel?
That's a policy decision, so if the plan commission feels as though there are additional opportunities for sharing, whether that's IT services or assessors, attorneys, things like that, I mean,
Or even how you interact with your regional plan commission. Oh. I mean, there's different levels of government that it's not outlined anywhere. I don't even know when they do their Vision 2020 or 2030 now. Who sits on there?
Suica, or who are we talking?
Super back. I think it's me, I don't know. I'm just saying, there's not a lot of documents that
So
say.
did the village just work with maybe some of the other surrounding communities to do that emergency management program?
Mhm.
Is that what you're thinking of, that kind of
Opportunities for those things.
effort?
For instance, yes, for EMT, EMT is not included. EMT, maybe we want them to be part of that plan. I don't know, I just feel like there's nothing that documents that unless somebody else knows where that's documented
Well, like as the
comprehensively.
business district master plan, they had roundtables with stakeholders, many of whom were developers that did not live in the village. And, you know, the people who did participate were probably known to those who were on the CDA or plan commission or staff or whoever. So I think it is important to identify who is gonna have a seat at the table. 5 of us could probably solve, you know, to put our stamp on
That's
it.
public participation.
But, you know, how broad a public, just like Wilson Drive, are people gonna be able to,
That's public participation.
you know, say, yes, I wanna participate in that?
That's
And
exactly
that
right.
kind of, you know, but that's the project going on for like more than a year, so.
That's public participation, and that's,
Right.
that, yes, but for intergovernmental, what I feel, what I don't know where it is where do we document comprehensively all of the things that we do already? I know we have the fire plan, and we have, you know, but where are they in one space, which is your comprehensive plan, that talks about what we already do as service sharing and the documents, like listing of the documents so that people know where to go? And what are some services that could be looked at in the future? And then what are some agencies that are out there that we should be, you know, what are the levels of government that the village should or could be coordinating with? I just never see that anywhere. And who is the point, you know, like I just don't see where it's documented anywhere.
Well, I would assume that the head of each kind of major department would be doing that on their own. For example, the library is part of the Milwaukee Federated Libraries.
Where is it written though? I mean, in one spot.
Well, as part of the library management, I don't know if this is it.
Oh, I agree they're doing it.
And, you know, Chief Nimmer and, you know, is involved with coordinating with
The emergency management plan, I get that.
Departments and the North Shore, so.
You
does it
just
have
want
to
it in
be
the
cen-
comprehensive.
Yes.
Does it have to be centralized?
Because it is an element, I'm really big on planning. And the comprehensive plan is supposed to be where you document, like, if you have other plans that you're referencing in as part of your comp plan, they should be in there. Because that document should be your all-inclusive of, it's comprehensive. So in intergovernmental relations,
But if it's a matter of documenting, once again, that would be the village taking the lead saying, well, we can tell you what we already
Okay.
have.
Right.
The question that I think is being asked is whether or not we want someone to research whether or not we could or should be doing other things.
sharing services, correct, well, is there other opportunities that other places do that we have not looked at? And then also, you may be able to document, you know, here's what we do in terms of the library, but what about sewer pack? What are you gonna tell them? I just feel like there are things that they might be able to identify that we should be, there's a regional transit authority. You know,
There's not.
well, there's a group that they.
I'm just saying that because the state banned them. so-
I understand, but there is definitely a group,
Authority.
because the mayor of Wauwatosa updates us every 2 weeks at ICC. She's their liaison. So there's someone that's meeting. Like, as the village president, I can't find what is out there that we could be participating in. And I don't really know them all either. I just feel like a consultant would be better at that.
And I have no issues with throwing that out there, and it's just gonna be a matter of time, budget, and resources.
I understand.
So if this plan commission or the village board, whoever ultimately, I mean, this is the village board that will adopt it, if they want to say, yes, we should focus on that, I have zero issues with it. I was just looking at it in terms of,
I know what you're saying.
I know that issues and opportunities and land use came up as your primary ones.
Yep.
This is a conversation, so if you guys feel as though that would be a useful, you know, spend of our time and resources to document that better and perhaps research it,
Well, we
It's
are
an
going
easy
to
switch.
document it. The question is whether they will provide a lead in providing new opportunities, which that's a cost
Or
to the
anything we're
village.
missing. Like, we can document what we have, but is there anything we're missing? There's a land council out there.
How
So
much
where do you think they should
added
make a
cost
lead
would there be?
assist there?
It's like a partner, because Mark can document everything that we have, right? That he can think of, with assistance from the rest of the village. But it's really that outside person to say, oh, there's a land council. Whoa.
Or other communities do X, Y, or Z.
These are the regional
Right.
ones that you're missing.
That you don't have to pay.
I would just switch it
consultant.
from assist to lead at that point and say
Okay.
that we don't have the expertise in this, we can give you what we have, but we'll acknowledge that we don't have, whereas like transportation, we already have the effort somewhere.
Right.
We don't know, we've never, in my at least knowledge of, we've never taken the time to focus on that aspect.
Oh, I agree, I think that's number one, is for plan commission purposes.
So to me, it's an easy switch from assist to lead, and then if it comes back that it's too expensive, then it's a decision of the board as whether or not it's worth keeping in there. But I think it's clear the plan commission's recommendation is to prioritize land
Yep,
use.
okay.
And then if it's too much to take it on, then we can't do it this
So
time,
when you
right?
say land use, tell me what you mean by that.
So a review of the zoning code and review of the zoning map,
When's the land use
and
map?
the future land use map.
Okay,
So there's three main components of that.
Yeah, that was redone within the last 10 years.
not too
And
bad.
it was done with Erica.
The future land use
Yeah,
map.
because if you look at it, you know, I was just looking at it today to figure out what's an R4 for the
Mhm.
chimney issue. And on the east side of Capitol Drive, where there's some funky colorings, because when those maps were redone, and those neighbors did not want their property rezoned for what the rest of the street was being done. So we can take a relook at what's the current zoning for each strip.
And let me just make this clear.
And do we want, does it still serve our purposes to keep it that way?
When you say zoning, I don't think that's part of comprehensive planning, to relook at the zoning code. The reason I say that is, the zoning code implement is supposed to be one mechanism to implement your comprehensive plan, your land use map, and your zoning map. I always thought, and it would be great for the commissioners if we could provide maybe 2 examples of other land use components of adopted plans from communities. Just, aren't they really high-level land use? For instance, I'll tell you some of the ones from Milwaukee. Encourage mixed-use development, whereas in the past, in land use policy, it was to separate them in the 50s, you know, or, so it's really those major general policies that go into your comp plan.
We have,
Correct, height,
we have that.
Heights on the map, right? That's the land use and.
heights in the code.
Right.
I see what you're
Right,
saying.
so you can't, I don't think you can look at the map without looking at the code. To me, they're interchanged, you can't separate them.
Oh, I see what you're saying, but it's not to go through the zoning code and just say, like, that is.
It's not gonna look at the parking regulations
Okay.
or
No.
things like that, it's gonna look at the land use regulations in the zoning code
Okay,
and how they are on the map and how the future land use
but
could
you
or
still have to
shouldn't
write
change.
policies. You still have to write, right, you have text in the land use.
Yeah, it will give recommendations to implement things, at that point, then it's the
No,
plan commission's just,
so, from my understanding, it's, you have policy in your comprehensive plan, so land use policy.
yeah.
Yes, you're gonna have to look at your zoning code and your land use map to develop those policies, but the policies are very general, and then underneath them, you can have how you implement that. Change your zoning code, change, you know, but how do you, you still have to have policy in your plan.
Well,
I don't disagree with that, and I don't know what I said that was different than that, but that's exactly
Okay.
what I'm referring to.
yeah, so when
Okay.
you look at the map, like we changed it, I think, for when the board approved to change the zoning code, but for River Park parking lots to P1, parkland preservation.
Yep.
When it was redone over years ago, the ones on.
The map would have the color that this is gonna be parkland mixed
Says mixed-use
code.
development, so that's already done. So
But
we
if the
wanted to look
code,
at that.
like you're saying, if the code for commercial, B1 or B whatever, doesn't allow duplexes, and we wanted to change that, it would go into a policy statement of allow, you know, residential in commercial districts, and then your recommendation action would be change
Right,
B1
update the code section.
update the code section to allow it. So, I think that's what both of you are saying, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, because right now, all of, except for those parts that are institutional, like Atwater School, the village here, the strip along Oakland is all the same. So you've got drive-in restaurants like Culver's and, just west of it is the same as the east side of Capitol. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You know,
that's on the land use
you
map,
know,
correct?
we've got 4 lanes on
Cars.
Boulevard versus 2 lanes, you know, the slower speed limit. Does it make sense to zone them the same? That
Or create a
kind of
new
land
zone.
use.
Right?
Correct.
We're creating a zone.
Right.
Okay, got it. All right, so yeah, I would prioritize that.
So that's just my general overview of the RFP. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it within the packet or not. If there's other things to discuss on it, this is what we're here for. Based on the timeline, I would have the February 3rd village board meeting to discuss, possibly get it adopted, or the February 17th. My goal is to have it done by the 17th, to publish it on the 18th, to get responses back sometime in March, right? So this is like the plan commission's one chance to kind of weigh in specifically on it.
I did read it over today. I just have one correction for you on the front. We're 1.6 square miles instead of 1.2. That's under the first sentence under project background.
And do you know where that stat comes from? Because it's a highly
It's like
discussed stat.
it will includes the parks. You know, it's like 1.567. You know, it's like a rounded off.
Yeah, I'll just reconfirm that number, but I know that's been discussed back and forth
Yeah.
on
And
various levels.
my only question for you, Barb, was in your estimated timeline, you're giving the consultants of interest 8 days to submit their proposal if they're interested. Is that sufficient time, in your experience, for someone to, and what you're asking them to put in a proposal? Is that enough time to get back to you?
You're talking about the March 18th deadline?
Right, March 18th.
That's a simple email to me saying we're interested.
Okay.
That's all it needs to be, so that when questions are answered, everyone who's interested gets the same benefit of having that answer. So sometimes, like a consultant will submit a question and say, I want clarity on this section.
Oh, I see.
And then what happens is, I
It's
publish
not-
the response to those, and anyone who's interested gets that blast back that says. So this deadline is to ask your questions of me and to say that you're interested in bidding on it.
Yeah, so March 18th, and then March 27th, the proposals are due. So is their full proposal due like 8 days later or no?
When's the full proposal due?
March 27th.
Yes, that's what I just wondered.
They're giving me the notice on March 11th.
Okay,
So they have the.
I'm answering questions by the 18th.
okay.
Oh, I see.
So they have
can
that
be prepared
time
The whole time
To
now.
start,
Right.
so they've got a couple of weeks to start putting together, okay.
Do you have time for interviews? I can't remember.
So interviews are April 13th to the 17th.
Right on my birthday.
Okay.
I'll be out of town.
They'll be notified the week of the 3rd, and we can be flexible on these. But that's the general concept of,
You have to have it right in that 3 days, huh? I'll be out of town.
we do not. That's what I'm saying, we can be flexible on it, just, so we're gonna notify, based on this timeline, we would notify firms of the interview on April 3rd. At that point, we would know how many we're doing and the team to do it. So if it needs to be April 10th or needs to be April 20th, I don't have a
Okay.
problem. Because planning commission would meet on April 28th to provide your recommendation, and the board would approve it on May 4th.
Okay.
And then under your, further down the page under task 2, you've got the previous planning efforts, that number 1, comprehensive plan 2030, did you mean 2010?
I believe the title of the plan is Comprehensive Plan 2030.
Oh, okay, I was just
It's a
thinking.
20-year plan that was adopted in
That was
2010. Yep,
10 years ago, oh, that's what I was wondering.
the cover, I believe, does say
Or-
2030.
Okay.
For presenting the plan, we always tripped up on this. Do you want a hard copy or do you want a digital copy? Or do you want both? So what we did was like, we want a digital copy and 10 hard copies in full color, or something like that, just to be very, very clear to them. I don't know if we want a hard, I'm sure we want at least
And you're talking about within task.
task 4. Because that has a cost to it and you're gonna wanna see, because if it comes in too high, then you can always cut back and just say, okay, let's just take the digital, but if, you might as well shoot for getting some printed copies, whether it be 5 or, just so that each
I
committee.
can add that before it goes to the board on Monday. I personally only ever need an electronic copy, but I'm sure
Maybe
people want to have a
one.
copy of the
Maybe it's in
library and
one.
things like that, right?
Yeah, I
So-
would say like a 5.
Right.
One to CDA, one to, I don't know, just, we typically always wanted at least one, but depending if you're gonna put it in the library, otherwise we have to print it all out. And it's so much easier just to be delivered.
I know customer service, I believe, has it at their front desk,
Yep.
so I can gauge how many copies to get of it.
Okay, and I don't care how many that is. And are we asking for local, or are you trying to get, if we think that travel's gonna be too expensive and it's gonna cut into the actual content, it would be great to specify the region in which the consultant can come from. I don't know if we wanna do that, but it's such a small amount of money, that's why.
Well, when they sort of, when they do their RFP of what
Yeah.
they'll do, they'll sort of limit and somebody who's local might offer 5 more services.
Yeah,
It
that's
should
true.
probably beat it out.
Right, I was gonna say, I thought that if they wanna travel here for free, we're not gonna stop them. I don't think they're going to, but yeah, if they're not local, I think their costs will be eaten up on other things that we would then prioritize and say we're not willing to pay for that, but.
And then the only other question under task 2 is, we want to include the Human Relations Commission Foundation, like they have something defining it. It's not necessarily a plan, but it does have a social aspect to it that we don't have in any of these other ones.
I'm happy to include whatever, so I'm actually not even sure what you're referencing, so.
I know we developed it the first few meetings. It's like their not bylaws, but it's their groundwork or foundation or something. It's like 2 pages, but it talks about what the goals are. It's about the human aspects of the village rather than just the physical.
I will find that through Tyler, I presume?
Tyler, huh?
Yeah,
Yep.
I can add that, that's not a problem.
Just so our community knows we care about the people too. I think that's all I have. And then the other question is we always have to specify, is it deliverable payments? Like, okay, when you're done with the first draft of all 10 element, whatever it is, we'll pay you this much, or is it by the hour? I always prefer deliverables, because then it doesn't matter how many hours they have to take. And with comp planning, it can get outrageous.
So payment is discussed on 39 there, all invoices for services will be processed within 30 days, but I can add based on completion of the deliverable.
And then just outline what the deliverable, like which stages. Otherwise, you're gonna eat up hours as they're reading, and it gets, comp planning is a lot by the hour.
But there's their 30,000 limit, right? We're just saying we'll only give you 10,000 once you've completed X, Y,
A
and Z.
deliverable, right,
Yeah.
and it could take you 100 hours, or it could take you 10 hours. I mean, we don't care as long as we get a satisfactory deliverable. I've done it both ways, but that's what we found was the most useful in comp planning for us, but. I think that was it, does anybody have anything else? Great job.
Thank you, so once again, I'm looking for a recommendation if you're willing to provide, so you can recommend as
yes.
discussed. But the village board will ultimately be the adopting body, but looking for recommendation if possible.
Did you say do we need to vote?
Make a motion, is that what you're saying?
I would prefer that I could say the village board, or the plan commission approved, or recommended this version by whatever vote. So, it sounds like we're all on the same page, but I just want to have that documented.
What did you put for intergovernmental?
I changed it to lead.
Do we have a motion to recommend as discussed to the village board?
Oh, one last little thing, that last sentence under estimated timeline.
What page are you on, sorry?
Page 36 of 43.
Okay.
That little paragraph right below the timeline, says interviews will be with staff and representatives of the recommending committee. You might just want to, since we're the recommending committee, just change that to the plan commission.
Yeah, so that's probably standard language from there, so I can specify and submit it as the plan commission.
And Bart, are you the lead for public participation,
What do you mean by that?
for developing that aspect?
No, that's them.
Okay.
But the board will have to approve that aspect.
So I've been on a bunch of these RFP in committees. I go to the committees when they come back, and we really should be specific if we can on what we think. So for instance, because it's an update and it's general policy, I would hate for them to come back and say, we need 3 public participation sessions that eat up 5 hours each. Again, if it's deliverable, it might be better, but what do we expect is what I think is important. Is it more internal, where we're working with our committees and our staff and our current plans, and then at the end, we actually take it? Or is it, if we create a team, is that where they're getting the feedback throughout the process? They can come up with that too, but it's hard when you get the proposals back and they put something in like 3 focus groups, and it's like, well, what happened to, if we have any idea of how it should be structured, I think it'd be beneficial to put it in. I know you're running out of time.
But you're asking for how I want to structure it or how the plan commission wants, like, if you guys have ideas, that's where I'm here for.
You could generalize and say something like, to include at least 50% of the plan would include public participation
Right.
versus.
Right, and I.
Because where I,
It's just
I'll be
us.
honest, where I struggle with this is, I think within the transportation plan, we specify the number of meetings that we had to have.
Right,
The number of meetings that we had, I don't know what that was, whereas the housing plan, which I think we got an equal effort out of having one town hall.
right, I, see,
And so in
I,
the meantime, I spent a lot of time, effort personally on those 6 town halls.
right,
So if you're asking me, I would not say town halls are the most
I'm totally
effective
with
way to go.
so maybe it's just us, it doesn't have to involve the plan commission, but I do think we should talk about that, because there's a way to structure that there's a committee that includes, you know, representation, that looks at when we get deliverables, but that the actual public involvement, because it's an update, and it would come at the end, more so than all the way through. I don't know, and if there's different, maybe if it's an online survey or something, but if it's,
I honestly,
town halls are so,
this is not to be lazy, but I honestly look forward to the consultant telling us how they think it works
okay,
best.
that's fine.
And then within the interview process, we could weed out and say,
Okay.
actually, in Shorewood, that's not gonna work. We know that, and we like to look
Okay,
beyond
so
that.
sometimes they try to play to what they think you want.
So I agree, if we know that we don't want something, or if we know that we do
Okay,
want
I'll
something,
talk to Rebecca too.
I'm open to including that. And like I said, the board will have up to 2 meetings to discuss this, so if the board has specific ideas too. I just know when we developed the RFP, I think it was with the transportation plan, the CDA was very excited to specify a minimum number of meetings, which is fine, it was, you know, what they wanted to do. Personally, as staff, I think I spent a lot of time coordinating that aspect of it for not as much results, so.
Okay.
I'm hesitant to dictate how that needs to go, rather than let us know how they think it works and we can be added to it. And that's not me being lazy, I'll be honest. 'cause
No, I get it.
I think
I
that's
just don't,
better.
I think it's better, and as long as we can listen to the interviews and then make some modifications. I'll talk to Becky too before it gets to the board.
Okay, it's coming on Monday, so.
Okay, all right, a lot of homework today. Well, all right, so does anyone want to make a motion?
I move to.
Want to read the motion?
Well, it's mostly like the last one you guys did, so it would be mostly a recommendation as discussed of the draft RFP to the village board.
Okay, to recommend the draft RFP as discussed to the village board.
Is that your motion?
For sure.
Okay, Commissioner
Where's
Hotel
my
motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Klein seconds, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, motion carries 5-0. Thank you, thanks Bart for putting up with us, putting up with me.
We got the
Keep going.
All right. The next one is, are we on 7?
Yes.
Or at 8?
8, yeah, census, whatever.
Okay,
that is.
discuss agenda item number 8, discuss 2020 census complete count committee communication plan.
So we discussed this in December as well. I just had the opportunity to put it in a more formalized document here. Once again, this is kind of a discussion. If you as the complete count committee feel as though we could be doing more or you have ideas to add to it, this is where you can tell me. I will just have this on every plan commission that we have between now and the census so that opportunities exist. So as you see, I've identified various avenues. You also may have noticed that there are weekly census partner liaison briefings. So as part of the Midwest region, they are offering essentially a call-in every, I think it's Thursday at 10 o'clock or whatnot, where you can hear other people talking what they're doing. So I don't think I did it last Thursday, but the Thursday before, South Bend, Indiana, talked about how they're renting out billboards and putting things up in town. Based on that, it gave me the idea to use this high school sign, right? So as they discuss those things, I might add them to it. Similarly, if you guys have concepts of things that you see opportunities at, if there's a school district event that I'm not aware of that you're going to. So we have the polling stations for the election, that'll catch a lot of people. We have it in the Shorewood Today, it's having an article on it. Village managers' memos will be, the library display board in February will be dedicated to the census.
But what is it saying besides the reason I ask this is if you do make one phone call, I call Wauwatosa, and just ask their planner what they're doing, because when I sit at the ICC, they always have the most, like, she doesn't identify all the efforts, but she has the most input into gung-ho census, getting out the word. The messaging is the part that I, like the 1 or 2 sentences of why it's important. What struck me, the simple sentence of, an accurate census count will get us an accurate funding from our partners at the federal and state level. Like, if we are off or undercounted, our resources could potentially go down. And so that's what they said at the ICC, and that struck me like, we want to protect our village, we want an accurate count, and why? I mean, what's the big deal? Because when you get that thing in the mail and it's a piece of, and you're, what other reasons?
I think the other thing you'd have to address in today's
Even for school
climate,
systems.
well, but I think in today's climate, you'd have to address that there's no negative consequences to you filling that out.
Right,
That's
so
a
there
great one,
are,
too.
the census does have, so I sent it to the management, they have like a video, a 2-minute video, and nobody watched it or not, but, so we'll do that on social media as well, so there
Who
are
really wants to watch a video
prepackaged,
on the census?
but they also don't want to listen to me talk about the census.
No,
either.
I'm thinking
So like, I don't know what
like,
else.
It isn't what I'm not saying that, like a
village
manager,
manager's memo, you just sort of put,
3 bullet
it's
points.
important that you do it,
Why?
and there would be no negative.
What would
consequences.
incentivize them to fill it
I mean,
out?
there was an article with it that's linked to the video, I'm just saying, so.
Yeah.
20 years ago, we lost their representative to Congress, so if our.
There,
population
I
is
really don't,
undercounted-
I
But
promise
to
you,
that
I'm
point,
saying
I don't know
this.
that we lost it based on an inaccurate count, because Wisconsin is always one of the highest
Well, I'm just
participating
saying.
members, so.
Well, we
What does
had,
it matter, is all I'm saying, because honestly, I'm the president of this village and I cannot give you 3 bullet points.
Stable, but it's not
No, I'm not joking,
Right,
yeah.
like, I know it's important, I know that an accurate count, but why? What are the things that are tied to that count? I don't know, I mean, I'm learning, but, federal resources, like, to our community, lines drawn, or whatever it may be, but, and then to also, at the very end, just footnote, this will not, by filling this out, it's not going to have any negative impact on you.
personal impact.
Correct, yeah,
And I'm sure you've already probably done that, I
Right.
just haven't seen it, but just to be that simple and very, what would it matter to someone? Because otherwise you get that stupid thing in the mail and you're like,
and as the committee yourself, you're more than welcome to send me,
I don't know what they are, that's my point.
Mark, we've got, I know March 1st is the Women's Club and the League of Women Voters is holding a candidate forum for those running for
Perfect.
local office.
School board. really.
Jenny Voltas is organizing that, and if you spoke to her, let's say in the next few days, 'cause she's gonna be gone in February, or someone from Women's Club, if they could give you like 5 minutes, maybe.
I can do it if you
Or,
want to.
or somebody could at the start of every
I have my
candidate
talking
forum
points.
to talk about that.
If I have my 4
Great
bullet
idea.
points, I'll do it.
And they
great idea. I will not be there March 1st either, but
Yeah,
we can work together to prepare a quick blurb on that, right?
and
Great idea.
I think the senior center is having a meet and greet, they do that every year.
Perfect. I'll be there too.
February, or any men's club, candidate
Yeah,
forum they
someone else
have.
can take that one.
Because I looked at all this, and I thought, boy, you are really busy. But, so if there's anything that we could do to help you,
That's what I'm saying, if someone's willing to write up a quick blurb that you think is most effective and hits the points that you want to drive home, I will never turn that away. If you want to volunteer to go to a meeting and speak on it, or to put up a
Yep.
poster at your church or at your.
As long as I have my
community
blurb,
group.
I'll do it at those 2. I don't know about the men's club, but the first 2 that you mentioned with the women's club, and at the senior center, but could you provide 3 bullet points of what you think are the most?
Sure.
And then we can add, or I can ask around too, just because I only know what I know.
there's probably something.
It's probably
that-
in the brochure.
Training for
Would it be?
And see, I think to the point of what you're asking for is, when you go to that stuff, they'll give you 1,000 reasons.
I know.
Right, pick the.
And so, yes, us prioritizing what we think hits our
Yep.
audience the best, probably
Yes.
is not a bad exercise. So I can definitely pick out my 3 and send it around.
That would be fabulous.
I have a question for you. So
And a link to whatever you were looking at, and then I will
is the
promise
census,
I will look at that.
because they're wanting to do things online, so is the Census Bureau going to mail instructions to each household on how to complete it? And then for those people who are not, like on the internet,
Mhm.
will Village Hall, the library, et cetera, have paper forms for those who are not online, or who do not feel comfortable filling out on the computer?
They won't have paper forms for you, but you can request paper forms. And so I don't know the logistics of this, but you'll first get the first,
That's a problem.
Like a mail or
The first mailer is a postcard introducing the timeline and your options.
Okay.
Then the next one is a letter, I think detailing how to respond to each of those different options. I don't know what that says, but I presume that if you want a paper form, you probably have to contact them and they will mail you a paper form. My understanding is if you don't respond by a certain time, they may automatically mail you the form and say, we didn't get it on the phone, we didn't get it online, fill it out. Then if you don't do that either, then they come to your door. So I think my understanding of the process is you're given the option to choose how you want it. How you do that paper form, I don't.
But every household will get something.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, every verified address in the village will be getting both that postcard and that letter.
So we want to work with everyone so that they know, don't just throw it in the junk pile to get
Right.
recycled or.
And it will be good to know if people do want the paper form, I should at least know, oh, if you want, make sure that you respond back to them and tell them that you want that or whatever. I don't know the answer to that, so I
They
can
won't
follow
have
with
paper
Alexia.
forms like in the library or anything? No, it's person specific, okay.
Right, it's,
But is the library gonna be set up where we can refer people to the library to do their input?
so currently, no, there's no special setup at the library, but once again, if we feel like we need
I
to
do
talk
think we need
with
to.
Rachel to have
2 computers?
a dedicated
Is there like-
space, I don't know.
Some assistance. I mean, there's.
I
people-
absolutely think so, for the seniors,
Yeah, and there's people.
even in the senior center maybe, but I feel like there's a lot of people that left alone, older, especially older adults that aren't gonna fill that out.
Yeah, we, as an election inspector, I see people who come to vote and their children have to help them fill out the ballot or
Right.
whatever,
That's
you know,
you,
whatever reason.
I would just talk to Rachel and,
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
just say, is there a specific time frame to fill it out, is it like a week or?
It's not that short.
No, so you'll get the mailings
Okay.
early March, you can start doing it at that point. Census Day, which is just,
That's the date.
it's just a chosen holiday, is April 1st, but you are given much longer than that to respond. They won't start knocking on doors, I don't believe, until June or July.
Okay, so maybe just ask them when would be a good week, like
Right.
census week at the library or census week at the senior
Right,
center.
so I think the national media and everything is gonna be blasting this out on April 1st, so if you don't see it, it's because you're not paying attention. 'Cause
So
I think,
maybe right after that.
because I've already heard ads on the radio and I've seen ads even during football games and stuff on it. so-
That's fabulous, so right around April 1st or right after, both those, the library and they should advertise or get out in their memos or whatever they have, newsletters, we will have a census week, if you want help filling out on the computer, that'd be fabulous. I'm sure every community is going through this, we've got a lot of people that don't know how to use the computer.
And if the library staff does not have time to help people, maybe
Volunteer, friends of the library, will come in,
the librarian could put something in the manager's memo, seeking volunteers to
that's the library.
help residents, go online and, get them started, filling it out.
That sounds great, thank you. We missed our training, so,
It's fascinating.
great, apologize.
So, once again, work in progress, these are good ideas, I can add them. I'll implement them if I need things from you, I'm gonna reach out.
Absolutely.
Same thing, if you have opportunities, please feel free to reach out to me as well.
So like if you see an event or something, just send it to you as a planning
Yeah, like
commission?
if you know something's happening because you're involved with things that I don't know about, let me know.
Citizens Academy?
Sure, yeah, there's several of those still on
Okay.
the schedule.
I'm doing mine in a week, so.
There's no action on this one, so